this is a high-stakes game when a company applies for administration, the creditors are all kept to one side, and there's a period of time when other bidders can come in and try and save some of the company. You know, Wilko is very prominent, particularly in the Midlands and the north of England.
Yep.
Over 400 stores. It's a high street institution. It was originally set up by the Wilkinson family.
Yeah.
That's why it's called Wilko. What happens in these situations is there's always a kind of standoff and a kind of white-knuckle ride as we approach the deadline. Trade unions saying that they think the talks are going to collapse and redundancies are going to be announced. Other bidders are saying, no, we're still here, we're negotiating. Obviously, there's huge potential value. All those high street sites, another discounter can come in and rebrand, just like a lot of Woolworths were rebranded. There's a Woolworths 200 metres from my house, and it's now a QD. It's been rebranded, and to all intents and purposes, it sells roughly the same thing.
Was one of the problems here, though, that the GMB was trying to get the whole thing sold off lock, stock and barrel, which is what I think 400 shops, 12,500 workers, because of course some of those retail outlets weren't doing as well as others.
That's
There
right.
was a very patchy figure.
Obviously, the unions will do what they do, and, you know, fair play to them. It's what their members pay their subscriptions for. They will be looking to retain the maximum number of outlets, the maximum number of jobs, and that's what trade unions absolutely should do. Suitors for the business, they will want to just cherry pick the more successful shops in the slightly more affluent high streets, though, of course, we all know that many high streets are suffering. So there is a game of high stakes going on, and no doubt the GMB going public will be looking for ministers to, you know, maybe little maybe handouts of some kind, subsidies, because it is such an iconic employer and such a high street institution. And if Wilko is falling by the wayside, what does that say about levelling up the UK? Given, as I say, so many of these stores are in the Midlands and the North.
Well, and indeed the state of Britain's high streets. Because, I mean, I think we were sort of earlier, we were looking at, I think, Poundland, B&M, the Range, Home Bargains, all sort of sniffing around and looking at the
B&M
figures.
have absolutely been sniffing around. Poundland have been sniffing around. These are two pretty successful businesses. And there's
in the same sort of
same
niche.
Sort of, if we say income bracket and demography. Look, there's something much bigger going on here, Mark, as well. The high street is being hollowed out. I know the Labour Party, from talking to their frontbenchers, they are making, or they're gearing up to make part of their election offer a kind of high street rescue package. And what sort of things could we look at? Well, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, she's already talked about reforming business rates.
Well, I was going to say,
a lot of stores. Let's just explain briefly what business rates are, because I guarantee you most people don't really know. Business rates are what you must pay on the rateable value of your property, whether you rent it or own it. And you must pay those if you're a business, a retailer, a restaurant or whatever, before you've earned any money whatsoever, let alone made any profit. Zero revenue, you still have to pay those business rates. And a lot of retailers have been saying for many, many years now, that makes it so hard to compete with the online giants who, of course, don't have physical retail outlets.
And all those overheads.
So that's one thing that the Labour Party's looking at.
Is it also the fact that, you know, as we've indicated, Wilko at the budget end, you know, pile them high, sell them cheap. They haven't been able to sell them cheap because of the input costs of getting this stuff, even though it's coming in from China and elsewhere. They're having to pay more for the goods coming in and then charge more, and, you know, basically
these kind of let's call them high street household discounters, right? Which is what they are. They were absolutely walloped during lockdown because we've talked about it before. Freight charges, shipping costs absolutely skyrocketed during lockdown. The price of diesel means that freight costs are still not returned to pre-pandemic levels, and a lot of this stuff is imported, particularly over long distances, not least from China and the Far East, as you say. Also, these discounters, they need staff. They generally have people still on checkouts because the demography, the communities they serve,
filling shelves, all
filling
that.
Shelves, lots and lots of people, lots and lots of expense. I still think, Mark, as I said at the very beginning, something will come out of this. I don't expect 12,000 redundancies. I don't expect 400 stores to close. It's a matter of how many, where, and the quality of them. That's what this negotiation is about, and about the price.
And whether there'll be any cherry picking. There's a bit more coming in from the GMB now. Let's just update you, because clearly there's 12,500 workers out there who are rather worried at the moment. Now, the GMB is saying that the redundancies will start next week after this latest bid fell through. Most staff, they say, in the commercial trading team, IT, finance, legal and HR divisions will have their last day with the company on Monday, the unions announced. For warehouse staff, redundancy due to start next week. But, as Liam was saying, GMB says it remains hopeful there is a viable buyer on the table which could protect staff in stores and online, but they must continue to prepare for the worst. So, as Liam say, high-stakes poker underway. We'll update you as we get more.